always want to be right. I think, there has to be room to grow. There has to be room to learn. I'm Rebbecca Hemmings and I'm the director of Strawberry Words Training Consultancy. We specialise in educating people and organisations about race and racism. In the work that we do, people disagree with us all the time, and so we have to be prepared for that. And I think it starts with the person. I think it starts with the individual. I think it starts with you firstly being able to put your ego to one side. Because I think when you don't do that, I just think it doesn't go very well. Disagreements do not go very well. And so putting your ego aside, I think it's also about having a level of self-confidence, confidence to be able to carry your argument forward. In order to have confidence, I think you have to be educated on what you're disagreeing on, because why would you enter a conversation if you can't state the facts? But I think also you have to have a level of humility. You're not always going to be right, and we don't always want to be right. I think, there has to be room to grow. There has to be room to learn. And whilst, and again, I'm talking from a work context, but whilst we're wanting people to learn, we wouldn't be great educators if we weren't willing to learn ourselves. So there has to be an openness to hear what the other person is saying. So that's all the personal stuff. Again, putting your ego aside, having confidence, being educated, having that humility. But also actually on top of that, I think you have to have a great sense of self. I think if you're not sure about who you are and feel solid in your foundations, again, you can be easily rocked, which means that when you're trying to put forth your argument, people may not have that confidence in you. It's like somebody said to me, would you have a brain surgeon do surgery on you if you asked the question, I guess you've done this many times before, right, doc? And the doctor's like, well, I have, but, you've got to have that level of confidence for people to buy into what you're saying, and self-assurance, should I say. Being able to communicate well, that's critical. And again, it's connected to that whole confidence thing and being educated. But if you don't have the way of communicating or the means to communicate well, again, clarity of your position, clarity of voice, clarity of your words, not mumbling. For instance, when I was younger, I used to mumble a lot, and I started out as in performing arts, and I had to get over that pretty quickly, because if people are struggling to hear what I'm saying, I'm going to lose them. So in order to engage people in your arguments or your point of view, I think absolutely you have to be able to communicate well. That's tone of voice, clarity, diction, all of that. So that's yourself. Then I think it's also about being able to relate well to others. How can you do that? I think what's essential, and this is what I tell my trainers first and foremost, is be non-judgmental. Because nobody wants to be in a conversation where they feel judged. And if you're trying to convince somebody of your argument, the minute you judge them for having their point of view, they're going to shut down. Defenses go up, they're not going to hear, or it's highly unlikely that they're going to hear you. So I think, again, that comes with a humility, be in a position that even if you do have a judgment in the back of your head, because we're all human beings and we do all judge, withhold that judgment and hold space for that person's opinion, again, because you might learn something. In work, people are always disagreeing with us or with me as a trainer. So a common example is people will often say, well, I don't have unconscious bias. Now I know through my research, through my reading, and just because I know, we all have unconscious biases. And so what I will do is, again, in a training setting, I'll do as much as I can to educate that person. We take them through exercises to help them, to help see things in a different way. But I know that I could come out of that situation with having not convinced that person, and I have to be again, humble enough to know that that's okay. And so what I'll do in that instance, what I normally do is I say, okay, I know, I haven't managed to convince you, or I know there are some of you sitting there still not convinced that we all have unconscious bias. I urge you to go and take, the implicit association test, or do your reading around it. So for me, it's okay. I have to tell myself it's okay if people don't see my point of view. It's okay if we don't agree. It's not always easy, is what I'm saying. It's not always as simple as agreeing to disagree. I think sometimes it's about persistence. I think sometimes it's about going around the issue to come back to it. In the area that I'm working in now, speaking about racism, I've always had the lived experience of racism, but I wasn't always able to eloquently talk about it. And sometimes things would frustrate me. I'd want to talk about it. I want to say why something was wrong, but I didn't have the language to be able to do that. And so I can't tell you how incredibly validating, how empowering it is to be able to say in crystal clear terms, this is wrong and these are the reasons why, because I've done the reading, I've gone to the conferences, I've done the research, I've immersed myself in that world of racism, for all its faults. So I can confidently talk about when something is wrong. And so I'd say it's educating yourself in order to be confident. And in fact, that's the tip. There's nothing else than that. I think the two go hand in hand. Be confident because you're educated, but be humble. That's it.